Hello and welcome to Sanute TV News. I'm Nick Peters. Now, the new year brings with it, as always, the New Year Honours List. And manufacturers were very well represented among the awards handed out. Didn't have time to interview all of them, of course. So I thought I'd select one who I felt was most representative of the kind of spirit that UK manufacturing has and will most definitely need in 2021. Also, because the products that the company produces are so relevant in this time of pandemic in which we live. The company is Admaster in Stafford. Their CEO is Paul Morris. Now, Paul Morris, MBE. Paul, a very warm welcome to you.
Morning. How are you?
Well, I'm fine. Many congratulations on your MBE. What was your reaction when you heard about it?
It's so strange because it's such a shock anyway to receive. I mean, we've been very fortunate and won Queen's Awards, you can see behind me, and those are things that you actually apply for. So there's always an inkling that you might have a chance at something. But with the MBE, obviously, you have no idea at all. And literally in the middle of what is a very, very busy time for our business, this random email turns up saying that you've been awarded an MBE. And because of COVID, it's an email rather than a letter. So you half expect halfway down there someone to say, send me £5,000 now and I'll send you the MBE. And I did a search online and realized that it was genuine. And since the summer, they have been sending them out by email. So tried to digest it, sat in the office on my own for a while. When I realized I was 99% sure it was genuine, I punched the air. I just couldn't believe it. Even took me a few days to even tell my wife, just to be able to share the news with her. I just could not digest it. So it was a tremendous honour. And obviously, I'm very pleased.
Well, before we get into the nuts and bolts of the award itself, I'm curious to know how everybody at the company must feel at the news that the boss has been made an MBE.
It's strange actually because I'm from a very normal background. You know, I've started a business on virtually nothing, and I've always felt embarrassed if we ever do well. It's a weird thing. It probably just goes back to my childhood, but they've been so supportive. You know, I've said to them, you know, it's because of what they've done that's enabled Admaster to have the visibility it has. And as someone that's obviously been there and started a business as the business leader, people look to me as if I've done it all. And if I could do it all, I would be superhuman. But I've got tremendous staff. You know, they are so supportive. It's been a tough year. The toughest year we've had in our 20-year plus history. So yeah, for them, I feel, you know, when I get congratulated by them, I just can't help but saying, look, it's you that's got us to this position. It's this tremendous team we've got that enabled us all to win it.
Well, it has been a tough year for you and, of course, for so many other companies in the manufacturing sector and elsewhere. But, of course, COVID has added huge relevance to your products and your skills and technologies. So tell us about the award and why it is so relevant that it was given in this year.
I think it's relevant. I mean, the award itself was given for export and my backing of UK exports, which I'm very passionate about because we've always had a unique product offering. And we realized from an early stage that people would buy from you, even though it appears to be more difficult to export. But actually, when you get into it, exporting, I personally think, is easier than selling to UK clients. I mean, I still love my UK clients, but we're 70% export now. But typically, my export clients will order bigger volumes, less often pay up front. And so why wouldn't you want that perfect customer that does that? And obviously, it's a much bigger base. But with obviously COVID and our antibacterials and antivirals, then we've had even more influx from abroad. And we've had, you know, again, people aren't surprised, I'm sure, that we've had a record year, which has put even more stress on the business because we've been so busy and had to socially distance and do all the usual things people do. So yeah, although the awards for export, I think people have realized that what we are exporting is such a key item. And obviously this year, it just fits so well in, you know, the whole country coming together to try and beat this pandemic.
So please explain what Admaster's product is and why it's so relevant to fighting COVID.
The product itself, the product range, and it's quite interesting if you go back in the history slightly. The reason for setting up Admaster when I did it was to create products that people wanted, not what a company wanted to sell them. So I was always I'd worked for some great companies, but they always wanted me to sell what we had, not listen to the client. So by listening to the clients, you could then develop really unique products. And the time for starting the business was not right. I mean, if I look back now, just over 20 years ago, my wife was 6 months pregnant. I know because my son's 21 later this year. And it's a tremendous thing to ask your wife to do. I'm going to give up this great job I've got, and then I'm going to start because I believe people want to buy products that they don't know exists. And it's a real hard sell. And even lots of my colleagues in the industry would ring me and wish me luck and say, we've got a job for you though, Paul, when it doesn't work. So, but what's interesting is one of the first things that happened was my wife at the time was working at Stafford Hospital. And in the same way as the COVID came along, MRSA was huge then. So she said, you've said you want to develop things that don't exist. I work in the hospital and we're having a real issue with MRSA. Is anything you could do? So started to talk to people at Supply Products, and we came up with this really robust, really great efficacy product range that you could put into anything in a hospital environment. And we did have an effect on reducing MRSA. Washing hands and people being more aware of it is always the most powerful tool. But at the moment, and you can see some of the products behind me, there's around 40 different products that you'll find in a UK hospital that will contain our additive. And if MRSA falls on it, then it can't grow in it and it will die pretty quickly.
So what you do is you provide manufacturers of everyday items that you'll see in a hospital ward or in a doctor's surgery or whatever, and you provide them with an additive coating that actually repels bacteria and viruses.
Kind of. There are some coatings in there, but quite often we're actually inbuilt into the product. So case note folders in a hospital, it will be put into the paper processing manufacture. Dulux paints do a great range called SteriShield that goes into hospital paints. It's inside the paint that they paint on the wall. And again, the wall you can see behind me, this is painted with Dulux paint with SteriShield. So we did a lot, obviously, with the Nightingale hospitals this year, where we had to very quickly, or Dulux had to very quickly coat them. So whether it be a paint, a paper, it could be a powder coating on a hospital bed, it could go on the sheets, the floor, the light switches, the door handle. Wherever there was a common touch point where bacteria could spread, this is where we applied it. And at that time, it was only ever an antibacterial technology because that's what the need was and what we were being asked for.
So it started with bacteria, but now, of course, viruses are in the headlines, and you've had to adapt to that?
We have, and the technology we've got, because we can use it across all those products, it's very safe and it's safe against your skin. We even have things like children's mouth guards. You put it into very, very safe technology, but it's not as strong as some of the very robust, like chlorinated systems and bleaches that you can put on. So typically on broad section viruses, products like ours wouldn't have great efficacy. So we did a lot of work with cruise ships in terms of norovirus. And in our we have a liquid form of our product. In the liquid form, it was very good against norovirus. And we've supplied hotel chains as well that will spray chairs and conference facilities to stop the spread of norovirus. As soon as you embed it into a product like a plastic, we found that you took away some of the antiviral properties, because quite often viruses have a very hard outer shell, and that's why they are so proficient. Fortunately, with COVID, it hasn't got that hard outer shell. So we had to whereas people said your product has to be across all viruses, it came in March and people were saying, well, will it work against COVID? And we had two things up against us. One, no one was legally allowed to handle COVID except government institutions because it was so dangerous. And two, we wasn't quite sure. So we had to do a lot of very rapid testing on other coronavirus families. And we found that the additive was very effective. And so we got very excited about it. And so did our clients. And then we've had a massive wave of testing. And from November this year, we actually managed to find laboratories now that are qualified to do actual COVID-19 testing. Which is the SARS-CoV-2 virus. And so, yes, from a standing start, we found out that this, I say small section, but it's about half of the types of viruses you can get. Our whole product range works against them. So our liquids have always worked against all viruses, but now we can embed them into paints and coatings and against the SARS-CoV-2 virus. it's very effective.
Well, Paul, 2021 looks like it's going to be even busier for you. What's your view looking forward? I know from various things I've read about you that you're an enormously optimistic person. But what's your view of UK manufacturing going forward and the kind of attitude that you think will help all of us get through this?
I think it's tremendously tough. I think that people struggle with a lot of the decisions that are made for us, but I think you only have to look at what happened with UK manufacturing about how many people were prepared to make PPE at the drop of a hat, and I think that just summed up how how we are as an entrepreneurial nation. And again, Brexit has been very tough to go through, but as an entrepreneurial nation, we just have to say, look, we're going to make the most of it. We're going to make the best of it. We're going to try our best. I've got lots of friends that own really good businesses that are in, say, the hospitality trade, and it's just falling apart around them, even though they're fantastic business people. So we just all feel grateful that we can do something. And that's when I speak to manufacturers in the UK, they just all feel grateful that they can do something and make something, or they've adapted. And I think that adaptation is something that people underestimate for the British.
Well, Paul, many congratulations again. A terrific achievement for you and, of course, for all the people at Admaster. Congratulations. This has been Salute TV News. I'm Nick Peters. Thank you for being with us. See you again soon.